I didn't know my husband wanted his own grandmother to die until my 11-year-old daughter found a note hidden under our kitchen table that said, "Don't call anyone." Minutes later, I found her locked in a room with no water, and when I called him, he told me the exact same thing: "Don't call." That's when I realized something was very wrong, and by the time he walked back into that house, he had no idea I was already setting him up to lose everything. Chapter 1: The Note Under the Kitchen Floor. It was one of those quiet Bellevue afternoons where the house felt too still, like it was holding its breath. I was sitting at the kitchen island with my laptop open, pretending to work. A half-finished client mood board stared back at me, all neutral palettes and clean lines, the kind of design that was supposed to feel calm. I kept adjusting the same corner of it without really seeing it. My coffee had gone cold sometime in the last hour, but I hadn't noticed until I took another sip and felt the bitterness hit the back of my throat. I remember thinking, not for the first time, that I was tired in a way sleep didn't fix. Footsteps came running down the hallway, quick and uneven, the way Leela moved when something had grabbed her attention and wouldn't let go. She skidded slightly as she turned into the kitchen, one hand bracing against the counter. "Mom!" Her voice wasn't panicked, but it wasn't casual either. It had that tight edge I had learned to listen for. I looked up. She was holding a piece of paper, slightly crumpled, like she'd picked it up off the floor and hadn't smoothed it out yet. "Where did you find that?" "Under the table," she said. "Right there." She pointed toward the dining area, just beyond the kitchen island. It was half under one of the chair legs. I pushed my chair back slowly, a strange heaviness settling into my chest as I stood. There was no reason for it yet, just a feeling, like a shift in the air pressure before a storm. "Let me see it." She handed it to me. It was plain printer paper, torn unevenly along one edge. The message was written in dark ink, blocky and deliberate, like someone had taken their time to make each letter clear. "Don't call anyone yet. Just wait." No name, no context, no explanation. I read it once, then again. Leela watched my face carefully. "Mom, why would someone write this?" I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. My mind was already moving ahead, trying to place it somewhere logical, somewhere harmless. A mistake, a note for something else, something that had nothing to do with us. But the words didn't feel accidental. They felt like instructions. I forced a small breath out through my nose and folded the paper once, more out of habit than intention. "Maybe it's nothing," I said, and even as I said it, I knew it sounded wrong. Nothing doesn't get written like that. Leela didn't look convinced. She rarely did when something didn't add up. That was one of the things about her that both comforted me and scared me at the same time. She saw things, patterns, gaps, the things I had spent years learning how to ignore. "Who wrote it?" she asked. I shook my head. "I don't know." We stood there for a second, the silence stretched just a little too long. Then she said, "Grandma Evelyn." The way she said it wasn't dramatic, it was just the next logical step. Something in my stomach tightened. Right. We should check on her. Evelyn's room was at the back of the house, past the hallway that always felt a little darker than the rest, no matter how many lights were on. I had walked that hallway 1,000 times in the past year and a half, always with the same quiet sense of obligation, like I was stepping into a space that didn't quite belong to me. Margaret had insisted it was the best place for her. Quiet, private, away from the main part of the house. I used to think that made sense. Now, walking down that hallway with Leela just behind me, it felt different, narrower, colder. I knocked lightly on the door, more out of habit than expectation. "Evelyn?" No answer. I pushed the door open. The room smelled faintly stale, like the air hadn't been moving enough. The curtains were half drawn, letting in a thin strip of gray light that cut across the bed. Evelyn lay there, exactly where she always was, propped slightly on her side, her body small under the blankets, her face turned toward the window. For a second, nothing moved. Leela stepped forward before I could stop her. "Grandma." Her voice softened, almost instinctively. Evelyn's eyes shifted, slow but deliberate, until they landed on Leela. Not drifting, not confused, focused. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Not that she was awake, but the way she looked. I felt it then, sharper this time. That pressure again, like something just beneath the surface was about to break through. Leela glanced back at me, then reached for her phone. "I'm calling 911. Before she could unlock the screen, Evelyn's hand moved. It wasn't fast, but it was precise. Her fingers wrapped around Leela's wrist with surprising strength. "Not yet." Her voice was low, rough, but steady in a way I hadn't heard in months. Leela froze. I stepped closer. "Evelyn?" Evelyn's gaze shifted to me, and for a moment I saw something I couldn't name. Not weakness, not confusion, awareness. "Not yet," she repeated, quieter this time. "Look under the bed." The words settled into the room like a weight. I hesitated. There are moments where your body knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. This was one of them. I crouched slowly, the hardwood floor cool under my hand as I lowered myself. The space beneath the bed was darker than it should have been, shadowed by the low frame and the heavy blanket draped over the side. I leaned down and looked. At first, I didn't see anything. Then my eyes adjusted. A plastic bottle, tipped on its side, empty. Another one, further back, also empty. I reached in and pulled one out. It was dry, not recently finished, completely drained. A small, quiet realization settled in my chest. I stood up. When was the last time she had water? Leela looked between us, her brows pulling together. "I don't know," she said. I turned toward the nightstand. There was a glass there, half full, but the water looked cloudy, like it had been sitting untouched for too long. I picked it up and held it to the light. My throat tightened. I moved to the door and checked the handle, something I hadn't done before, something I should have done. There was a faint mark along the edge of the frame, a scrape, not obvious unless you were looking for it. I pressed the door closed, then opened it again slowly. It stuck for a second before giving way, like it had been forced or held shut. A cold, steady line of thought began to form. Behind me, Leela spoke, quieter now. "Mom." I turned. She was looking at Evelyn again, but differently this time, not just with concern, with confusion. "Something's wrong." I nodded because there was no point in pretending otherwise anymore. "Yeah, there is." I glanced down at the folded piece of paper still in my hand. "Don't call anyone yet. Just wait." My mind started pulling pieces together, whether I wanted to or not. Margaret's voice from earlier that week. "She's declining faster than we expected. It's normal at her age." Nathan's tone when I asked if we should get a nurse. "We don't need strangers in the house. It's handled." Handled. The word echoed in my head. And then the other one I'd heard too many times to count. "You're overreacting, Ilara." I swallowed, feeling the familiar flicker of doubt try to rise. Maybe I was. Maybe this had an explanation, a reasonable one, a simple one. But then I looked at Evelyn again. Her eyes met mine, steady. Not drifting, not lost, present. For a second, something passed between us. Not a look I could explain, just an understanding that something was happening, and I was only just beginning to see it. I unfolded the paper again, my fingers smoothing over the creases. The handwriting. I had seen it before. Not here, not in this room, but somewhere in this house. I turned it slightly, angling it to the light, tracing the shape of the letters in my mind. No, this wasn't Evelyn's. And once that thought settled, it didn't leave. If it wasn't hers, then it belonged to someone else. Someone who had been in this house. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I looked up, the question forming fully for the first time. If it wasn't hers, then who wrote it? And why would anyone in this house need to write a note telling someone not to call for help?
If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you. The thought didn't land all at once. It settled in slowly, like something I had been circling for years without ever letting myself step into the center of it. I stayed there for a moment, standing at the foot of Evelyn's bed, the paper still in my hand, Leela beside me, the air in the room feeling heavier than it should have been. Nothing about this felt like an accident anymore. And the worst part was, I couldn't tell if that realization was new or if I had just finally stopped pushing it away. I stepped out into the hallway, pulling the door halfway closed behind me. Not all the way. I didn't want to shut her in again, not even by accident. Leela followed me, quieter now. "Mom, what's happening?" I looked at her, really looked this time. 11 years old, standing in a house that suddenly didn't feel safe in the way I had always insisted it was. I forced my voice to stay steady. "I'm not sure yet," which wasn't entirely true. I had an idea, I just didn't want to say it out loud. Not yet. I glanced down at my phone in my hand. Margaret. If there was a normal explanation, she would have one. She always did. That was her strength. Everything had a reasonable version, a softer version, a version where no one was at fault, especially not her and especially not Nathan. I pressed call. It rang twice before she picked up. "Ilara," her voice came through, smooth and composed as always. "I was just about to call you. How is she?" The question landed too cleanly. I leaned against the wall, keeping my voice even. "When was the last time you checked on Evelyn?" A small pause. Not long, just enough. "This morning. Why?" "There's no water in her room." Another pause, slightly longer this time. "I'm sure she drank it," Margaret said. "You know how she is lately. She forgets." I closed my eyes for a second. The glass on the nightstand hadn't been touched. The bottles under the bed were empty and dry. She didn't forget to drink water. There's nothing there. "You're overthinking, Ilar." The words came quickly, familiar, almost rehearsed. "She's declining. This is what happens. You can't expect everything to stay consistent." I felt something in my chest tighten, but it wasn't doubt this time. Not the kind that turned inward. It was recognition. The same tone, the same calm dismissal, the same subtle shift that turned concern into exaggeration. I opened my eyes. The door to Evelyn's room was still slightly open. I could see the edge of the bed, a corner of the blanket. "Margaret," I said, quieter now. "The door sticks from the outside." "What do you mean?" "It looks like it's been forced closed before." "That's ridiculous." Too fast, too certain. I let the silence stretch. Then Margaret sighed softly, the way she did when she was about to reframe everything. "Ilara, you've been under a lot of stress, working again, taking care of Leela, trying to manage the house. It's normal to start seeing things that aren't there." There it was. Not denial, redirection. I almost smiled, but there was nothing funny about it. I used to believe her. I used to hear that tone and immediately question myself, wonder if I had missed something obvious, if I was being too sensitive, too reactive. You've always had a tendency to jump to conclusions, she continued gently. Nathan and I are handling things. You don't need to worry. Handling things. The phrase echoed again, louder this time. I looked down at the paper in my hand. Don't call anyone yet. Just wait. Handling things. A memory surfaced, uninvited. Leela was 2. I was exhausted in a way that felt permanent, like I had stepped into a version of life where I was always a step behind everything. Nathan would come home late, loosen his tie, kiss the top of my head, and say the same thing. You don't need to worry about anything. I've got it handled. At the time, it felt like relief. Now, it sounded like something else. I exhaled slowly. I'm going to check on her again, I said. That's fine, Margaret replied, her voice still calm. Just don't make it into something it isn't. The call ended. I stood there for a second longer, phone still in my hand, listening to the quiet hum of the house. Then I pushed the door open again. Evelyn hadn't moved much, but the blanket was slightly different now, shifted, like she had tried to adjust herself. Leela went straight to her side. Grandma, do you want some water? Evelyn's eyes moved to her, then to me. A small nod. I walked to the kitchen, filled a glass with fresh water, and brought it back. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I helped her sit up just enough, supporting her shoulders. She was lighter than she should have been. Too light. She took a small sip, then another. I set the glass down. The room felt quieter now, but not in a peaceful way, more like everything was waiting. My eyes drifted again, this time not under the bed, but around the room. The small details, the way the blinds were angled, the position of the chair near the window, the way the door aligned with the frame. Things I had seen 100 times, things I had never questioned. Until now. Leela shifted beside me. Mom, she said softly. I turned. She hesitated, then spoke more quietly. Why does Dad smile at his phone but not at us? The question hit harder than anything Margaret had said. I felt it in my chest, sharp and immediate. When did you notice that? A while ago. Her voice was small but not unsure. Sometimes at night or in the morning, he looks different. I swallowed. A flicker of another memory surfaced. Nathan in the kitchen early, coffee in hand, phone tilted slightly away from me. A quick smile that disappeared the second I realized I was there. At the time, I had ignored it. Of course I had. We all have our private moments, I had told myself. Everyone needs space. Everyone needs something that isn't shared. The name had come up once. Chloe. Just once. A notification that flashed across his screen before he turned it over. I had asked about it casually. Who's Chloe? A client. That was it. No hesitation, no explanation. And I had let it go. Because it was easier. Because questioning it would mean opening something I wasn't ready to look at. I looked at Leela now. He's probably just distracted sometimes, I said. Even as the words left my mouth, I knew they sounded hollow. She nodded, but it wasn't agreement. It was acceptance, the kind that comes from realizing you're not going to get a real answer. I turned back to Evelyn. Her eyes were on me again, not drifting, watching. For a moment, I felt like she was measuring something. Not my actions, my understanding. Like she was waiting to see if I would finally connect what had been in front of me all along. The thought came quietly, but it didn't leave. They didn't change. I just stopped making excuses for them. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the weight of that realization settling in. All the small things, the dismissed concerns, the controlled conversations, the way every question somehow turned back on me. You're overthinking. You're too sensitive. You don't understand how these things work. It had never been about helping me understand. It had been about making sure I stopped asking. I reached for the paper again, smoothing it out across my palm. Don't call anyone yet. Just wait. Not panic, not confusion. Instruction. Deliberate. I looked up. Evelyn was still watching me. Really watching. Not like someone lost in their own mind, like someone who had been waiting for this moment. Her gaze held mine steady. And then, for the first time since I had walked into that room, she spoke without hesitation. Let them come. The words didn't feel like a request. They felt like the beginning of something I wasn't going to be able to stop. If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you.
Chapter 3. The moment everything stopped making sense. My hand moved before I fully decided. I stepped out into the hallway again, pulling the door just enough to give us privacy, but not enough to shut Evelyn inside. Leela stayed close, watching me, her expression tighter than before. I looked down at my phone. Nathan. For a second, I hesitated, not because I didn't want to call him, but because something in me already knew what I was going to hear. I pressed call anyway. It rang once, twice. Then he picked up. Hey? His voice sounded normal, too normal, like nothing in the world had shifted. I swallowed. Nathan, I think something's wrong with Evelyn. A brief pause. Are you okay? The question came quickly, almost automatically. I waited. What happened exactly? There it was. Not panic, not urgency, just information gathering. I tightened my grip on the phone. She's weak, more than usual. She barely moved. There's no water in her room and... I stopped myself. I didn't know why. Instinct, maybe. Another pause. Then his voice again, steadier now. Don't call anyone yet. We're coming. The words landed harder than anything else he'd said. I felt it, physically, like something dropping in my chest. Don't call anyone yet. Just wait. The paper. For a second, everything in my head went quiet. Did you hear me? He asked. Yeah. My voice sounded distant, even to me. I hung up. Leela was watching me. What did he say? I didn't answer right away. Then slowly I repeated it. He said not to call anyone yet, that they're coming. Her face changed. Subtle, but I saw it. He didn't ask about you, she said quietly, or me. The words cut deeper than I expected, because she was right. He hadn't. I looked down at my phone again. 3 numbers, easy, immediate, safe. That was what I was supposed to do. That was what any normal person would do. I opened the keypad. My thumb hovered over the screen. Call. Fix it. End it. Behind me, I heard Evelyn shift slightly. A soft sound, not weak, intentional. I turned. She was watching me again. Not pleading, not afraid. Waiting. My thumb pressed down. The first number appeared. Then I stopped. The silence in the house pressed in around me. I could feel Leela beside me, close enough that I could sense her breathing. If I was wrong, if this was just confusion, just decline, just something I didn't understand, calling 911 would blow everything open. Embarrassment, anger, consequences I couldn't take back. But if I was right, if that note meant what I thought it meant, then someone in this house had already decided not to help her, and they didn't want anyone else to either. I stared at the screen. I erased it, slowly. I slipped the phone back into my hand and turned fully toward Evelyn. Okay. My voice was quieter now, but steadier. Talk to me. For a moment, she didn't move. Then with effort, she shifted slightly, her hand tightening against the blanket as if grounding herself. Her eyes didn't leave mine. I'm not as weak as they think. The words were low, controlled. Not a confession, a statement. I felt my pulse pick up. What do you mean? She let out a small breath. How long do you think I've been like this? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Because I had never actually questioned it. About a year, she said finally. Maybe a little longer. Her gaze sharpened. 18 months. The number landed with a quiet weight. I blinked. That's not... I started letting them believe it in early 2022, she continued, her voice still calm. At first, it was small, forgetting things, moving slower, letting Margaret step in. Images flickered in my mind. Margaret guiding her by the arm, Nathan making decisions on her behalf. The shift had been gradual, subtle, easy to accept. They watched, she said. They adjusted, and then they started taking more. I felt my stomach tighten. Taking what? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked toward the door, then back at me. Control. The words sat between us. Leela shifted beside me. Why would they do that? She asked, her voice small but steady. Evelyn's expression softened slightly as she looked at her. Because they thought I was already gone. Gone. Not dead, just irrelevant. I swallowed. Nathan wouldn't... I stopped. The sentence didn't finish, because I wasn't sure anymore. Evelyn shifted again, this time reaching slightly toward the edge of the dead. There's something else you need to understand. I stepped closer. What? She held my gaze. The house isn't his. I blinked. What? He thinks it is, she continued. Margaret lets him think that, but it's not. My mind struggled to catch up. Then whose is it? Sinclair Trust. The name hit with a strange familiarity. I had heard it before, in passing, in conversations I hadn't paid attention to. You're the trustee, she said simply. The room seemed to tilt slightly. That doesn't make sense. Nathan handles all of... He handles what I allow him to handle. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. A realization started to form, slow and heavy. All the decisions, all the access, everything I had assumed was his, might not have been. There's a lawyer, she added, Daniel Price. He's been preparing for this. Preparing for what? For when they stopped pretending. A chill moved through me. You mean you knew? I suspected, she corrected, enough to start documenting, enough to reach out. And the note? I asked. Her eyes flicked briefly to the paper in my hand. That wasn't mine. I nodded slowly. I know. Then you understand what it means. Not completely, but enough. Someone in this house had written it, someone who didn't want help to come. I felt my chest tighten again. And APS? I asked. They've been notified, she said. Rachel Kim. She's been involved quietly for a few months. Everything was already in motion, everything except me. I looked down at my hands. I was the only one who didn't know about it, the only one still deciding what this was. What happens now? I asked. Evelyn's gaze didn't waver. Now we let them come. The same words, but now they meant something different, not passive, not waiting, a trap. My heart started to beat faster. If this was true, if everything she was saying was real, then Nathan wasn't just neglecting her, he was choosing not to help her, deliberately. And if that was true, then I didn't know who he was anymore. A soft chime broke the silence. I turned. The security monitor near the kitchen lit up. Driveway camera. A car pulling in. Dark, familiar. Leela moved closer to me. They're here, she whispered. I stared at the screen for a second longer. Then I looked back at Evelyn. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Everything was about to shift. And for the first time, I understood something with complete clarity. No one in this house was who I thought they were.
If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you.
Chapter 4. The House That Was Never His. The front door opened with the same familiar sound it always made, a soft click followed by the low creak of wood settling into place. For a second, everything felt almost normal. Footsteps crossed the entryway, measured and confident. Nathan's voice came first, slightly raised, carrying that controlled urgency he used when he wanted to sound in charge. "Ilara?" I stood just outside Evelyn's room, my body still, my mind moving faster than I could keep up with. "I'm back here," I said. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. There was a brief pause, then the sound of more footsteps, not just one set, 3. Nathan appeared first, stepping into the hallway with his usual posture, shoulders squared, expression composed. He looked exactly like the man I had known for years, the man who walked into situations expecting to handle them. Margaret followed just behind him, her face already arranged into concern, controlled, appropriate. And then Chloe. She lingered slightly to the side, like she didn't fully belong in the space, but had decided to step into it anyway. For a split second, something flickered across Nathan's face when he saw all 3 of us standing there. Me, Lila, the door slightly open behind me. But it was gone almost immediately. "What's going on?" he asked, his tone calm but edged with impatience. "You said something was wrong." I stepped back slightly, giving him a clear line of sight into the room. "Why don't you see for yourself?" He moved past me without hesitation. That was beat 1. The man who believed he understood the situation, the man who believed he was still in control. Margaret followed him in, her eyes already scanning the room, assessing. Chloe hesitated in the doorway, then stepped inside. And then everything shifted. Evelyn was sitting upright. Not fully straight, but enough. Enough that the image didn't match the version of her they had been working with. Nathan stopped. It wasn't dramatic, it was subtle. A slight halt in his movement, like his body needed a second to process what his eyes were seeing. "What?" He didn't finish the sentence. Margaret moved closer, her brows pulling together. "How did she—" Her voice trailed off. That was beat 2. Confusion turning into something else. Evelyn didn't speak. She just looked at them, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. She wasn't playing weak anymore. The room held still for a second longer. Then another presence shifted in the background. Nathan's gaze moved past the bed toward the corner of the room. That was when he saw them. Daniel stood near the window, composed, hands loosely clasped in front of him. Next to him was a woman I recognized from earlier descriptions, Rachel Kim. Her posture was professional, steady, her expression neutral in the way people trained to observe without reacting, learned to maintain. And then, just beyond them, near the doorframe, a uniformed officer. Nathan's entire posture changed. Not completely, just enough. "What is this?" The question came sharper this time, no longer controlled. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Daniel stepped forward slightly. "Mr. Hale," he said evenly, "thank you for coming." Nathan's eyes flicked to him, then back to me, then to Evelyn. "What is going on?" he repeated, this time slower. Margaret recovered first. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice firm, already moving to reframe the situation. "Ilara, what did you do?" There it was, the shift. Make me the center of it. Make me the problem. I didn't respond. Rachel stepped forward slightly, her tone calm but authoritative. "We've been conducting an ongoing assessment regarding the care of Evelyn Sinclair Quinn. We have reason to believe there has been neglect." Margaret let out a soft, incredulous laugh. "Neglect? That's absurd." Nathan didn't laugh. He was still looking at Evelyn, really looking now, trying to reconcile what he was seeing with what he thought he knew. Evelyn held his gaze, steady, unapologetic. Daniel spoke again. "There are a few things we need to clarify," he said. "First, regarding this property." Nathan's attention snapped back to him. "What about it?" Daniel didn't rush. "This home is held under the Sinclair Trust. You do not have ownership rights." The words landed cleanly, direct. Nathan blinked. "That's not—" "It is," Daniel said. Silence stretched. I watched Nathan's face, the calculation, the disbelief, the slow realization that something fundamental had shifted.
I manage everything, he said, his voice tightening slightly. The accounts, the maintenance, You manage what you've been permitted to manage. That does not equate to ownership. Margaret stepped forward now, her voice sharper. This is ridiculous, she said. You've clearly confused her. She's not in a state to... Rachel cut in. We have documentation, including evidence of restricted access to water, limited mobility support, and potential confinement. Margaret's mouth opened, then closed. Nathan's gaze flicked to the floor, then to the bed, then back to me. This is because of you, he said quietly. The words were meant to land, to shift something back in his favor, but they didn't this time. Evelyn spoke then. Her voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. I let you believe this was yours. The room went still again. Nathan looked at her, really looked this time, and something in his expression broke. Not completely, just enough to show through. Chloe shifted slightly behind him. I told you we should have waited, she said under her breath. It was quiet, but not quiet enough. My head turned toward her. Rachel's eyes followed. Nathan's jaw tightened. For a second, everything was exposed. Not just the neglect, the plan, the assumption, the timing. Daniel continued as if none of it had surprised him. Additionally, your access to Sinclair holding systems has been suspended, effective immediately. Nathan's head snapped up. What? Your credentials have been revoked, Daniel said, as of this morning. I watched the realization hit him in layers. The house, the control, now the company. It wasn't just one thing, it was everything. Margaret stepped closer to him, her voice lower now, urgent. Say something, she whispered. Nathan didn't respond. For the first time since I had known him, he didn't have the next move ready. Rachel stepped forward another step. Mr. Hale, based on the evidence collected, we are proceeding with further action regarding the treatment of Evelyn Quinn. The officer shifted slightly behind her. The weight of that movement filled the room. Nathan looked from Rachel to Daniel, then to Evelyn, finally to me. I held his gaze. Not angry, not afraid, just done. The officer stepped forward. Sir, he said calmly, I'm going to need you to turn around. If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The Cost of Thinking You've Won. For a second, Nathan didn't move. It was almost imperceptible, that pause, like his body refused to accept the instruction, like if he stayed still long enough, the moment might reverse itself. Then he let out a short breath, sharp and disbelieving. You're serious? No one answered. The officer didn't repeat himself. He just stood there, waiting, calm in the way people are when they know the outcome is already decided. Nathan turned his head slightly, looking at me again, searching for something. An explanation, an ally, a version of me that would step in and stop this. I didn't move. Something in his expression shifted then. The disbelief cracked first. You're actually doing this, he said, his voice rising just slightly. Ilara, this is insane. I held his gaze. I didn't do this. That landed. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough. His jaw tightened. This is a misunderstanding, Margaret cut in quickly, stepping forward, her tone urgent but controlled. You can't just walk in here and accuse people of... Rachel didn't raise her voice. We're not accusing. We're acting on evidence. Margaret turned to her, her composure starting to slip at the edges. You don't understand this family. You don't understand her condition. I understand neglect when I see it, Rachel replied. The word hung in the air. Neglect. Nathan let out a low laugh, but there was no humor in it. This is ridiculous. Still, he hadn't turned around. The officer took a small step closer. Sir. That was enough. Nathan exhaled, slow and controlled, then turned. Not because he accepted it, because he didn't have a move left. His hands moved behind his back. The sound of the cuffs clicking into place was quiet, but it cut through everything. Lila flinched beside me. I felt it too. Not shock, not exactly. More like something final locking into place. Nathan looked down at his wrists, then back up, the disbelief now shifting into something sharper. Anger. This won't hold, he said. You think you can just...
His voice caught, not because he had nothing to say, because he realized no one was interrupting him. No one was trying to calm him down. No one was playing along anymore. "What about the company?" he said suddenly, turning his head toward Daniel. "You can't just remove me like that." Daniel didn't hesitate. "You were never an owner." Silence. Nathan blinked. Once, twice, like he was waiting for the rest of the sentence. There wasn't any. "You're lying," he said, but it didn't sound certain anymore. "The documentation is clear. Your role was operational, revocable." Nathan's breathing changed, faster now. "You can't just lock me out," he said. "My accounts, my access, they've already been revoked." Each word landed like a step down, steady, irreversible. I watched it happen in real time, the shift from control to confusion, from confusion to anger, from anger to something else. Panic. Margaret stepped in closer, her voice dropping, almost frantic now. "Say something. This is not how this works." She looked at me again, desperation starting to replace control. "Ilara, you need to fix this." I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because for the first time I understood exactly what she had been doing all these years, shifting responsibility, rewriting reality, making everything my fault. I didn't respond. Margaret's voice sharpened. "You've always been emotional. You're overreacting again. This is exactly what I was talking about." The words hit, but they didn't land the way they used to. There was no hesitation, no self-doubt rising up to meet them, just clarity. I looked at her. "I'm not overreacting." She froze for a fraction of a second. Just enough. Rachel stepped forward again. "We'll also need you to remain here," she said, turning slightly toward Chloe. Chloe stiffened. "What? I didn't—" "We have questions regarding your involvement." Chloe's eyes flicked to Nathan, then to Margaret, then back to Rachel. "I didn't do anything," she said quickly. "I just—" She stopped, the sentence unfinished, but it didn't matter. It was already enough. Nathan closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, the panic now fully visible. "This is insane. You're blowing this out of proportion." Rachel didn't respond. The officer adjusted his grip slightly on Nathan's arm. "Sir, we're going to step outside." Nathan resisted for a half second, not physically, just enough to show he wasn't ready. Then he moved. As he passed me, he slowed. Not stopped, slowed. His voice dropped. "You're making a mistake." I met his eyes. For the first time, I didn't feel the pull to believe him, to second guess, to soften. "No," I said quietly, "I'm not." Something in his expression flickered. Then it was gone. He was led down the hallway, the sound of his footsteps uneven now, the rhythm broken. Margaret stood frozen for a moment longer, then followed, her composure unraveling with every step. "This is not over," she said, more to herself than anyone else. The front door opened, then closed. The sound echoed through the house, and just like that, they were gone. The silence that followed felt different, not heavy, not tense, just empty. Lila shifted closer to me, her hand slipping into mine. I squeezed it gently. In the other room, Evelyn exhaled slowly, like she had been holding something in for a long time. Rachel and Daniel moved quietly, speaking in low tones, finishing what they needed to do. I didn't listen. For the first time since this started, I wasn't trying to keep up. I was just there, present. Lila tugged slightly on my hand. "Mom?" I looked down at her. Her eyes were searching, not scared, not confused, just trying to understand. Did he want her to die or just not matter? The question hung between us. I felt it settle. There wasn't an easy answer. There wasn't a softer version. I knelt down in front of her, bringing myself to her level. I chose not to care. The words felt steady, true, and somehow heavier than anything else. Lila nodded slowly, not because she liked the answer, because she understood it. Behind us, the quiet of the house settled deeper. No footsteps, no voices, no tension hiding under the surface, just stillness. I stood up slowly, my hand still holding hers, and for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel like something I needed to fill. It felt like something that had finally been cleared.
If this story touched you, please subscribe and let someone out there feel less alone. Don't you?
Chapter 6. What they lost was never just money. The quiet didn't disappear after that day. It stayed. Not in the same heavy way it used to, where silence meant something was being hidden or avoided or pushed down until it turned into something else. This was different. It felt open, like the house had finally exhaled after holding something in for far too long. The next few weeks moved in a way I can only describe as steady. Not fast, not slow, just forward. I filed for divorce 3 days later. There wasn't a moment of hesitation when I signed the papers. No second guessing, no replaying of conversations in my head, wondering if I had misunderstood something or pushed too far. That part of me was gone. Or maybe it had never really been me to begin with. Nathan's lawyer reached out within a week. Formal, polite, carefully worded like everything else in that world. There were mentions of misunderstanding, of stress, of complicated family dynamics. None of it mattered. The charges against him didn't disappear. Elder neglect, unlawful restraint, financial exploitation. Words I had never imagined would be attached to someone I had built a life with. He lost his position at the company before the investigation even fully unfolded. Sinclair Holdings moved quickly, quietly, the kind of quiet that doesn't leave room for argument. Access revoked, title removed, email shut down. I heard about it not from him, but from Daniel. These things tend to resolve themselves once the structure is clarified, he told me over the phone. Structure. That word again. Only now it made sense. Margaret didn't call. Not once. At first I thought she would, that she would find a way to re-enter the conversation, to reshape it, to explain how everything had been taken out of context. But silence was her final move. Or maybe it wasn't a move at all. Maybe it was all she had left. I heard from someone in her social circle, a passing comment relayed through someone who knew someone, that she had been avoiding events, declining invitations, staying home more. Not isolated by force, just no longer welcomed in the same way. Chloe disappeared even faster. No calls, no messages, no attempt to explain herself. Her name faded out of Nathan's phone records as quickly as it had appeared. It was like she had stepped into the situation just long enough to be seen, and then stepped right back out when it collapsed. I didn't chase any of it. I didn't need to. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to understand them. I was trying to understand myself. The house changed slowly, not physically at first. The same walls, the same furniture, the same light coming in through the same windows at the same time of day. But it felt different. The hallway didn't feel narrow anymore. Evelyn's room stayed open, always open. She didn't return to how she had been before all of this. Not entirely. Age doesn't reverse itself. But the stillness that used to sit around her was gone. In its place was something quieter but stronger. Control. Real control. Not the kind that needs to be announced. The kind that simply exists. We didn't talk about that day often. We didn't need to. It sat between us, understood. Lila changed in ways that were harder to put into words. She didn't ask about Nathan as much, not because she didn't care, but because she had seen enough. One night, about 2 weeks after everything happened, she came into my room and sat on the edge of the bed. I looked up from the book I wasn't really reading. "Can I ask you something?" I closed the book. "Always." She hesitated for a second, then looked me directly. "Are you okay?" The question caught me off guard. Not because it was unexpected, because of how simply she asked it. No fear, no uncertainty, just checking. I thought about it, really thought about it. "Yeah," I said finally, "I think I am." She studied my face, like she was making sure the answer was real. Then she nodded. "Me too." That was enough. We didn't need to say anything else. The rest of the house followed. Small things at first. I moved the chair in Evelyn's room closer to the window, replaced the old glass on her nightstand with a new one, always full, changed the way the kitchen felt, not by renovating anything, but using it differently,
cooking more, sitting there longer, not rushing through it. The space stopped feeling like something I was maintaining and started feeling like something I was living in. One afternoon, a few weeks later, Lila and I were in the living room going through things we had ignored for too long. Old boxes, stacks of papers, things that had been left untouched because there was always a reason not to deal with them. We worked quietly, side by side. At some point, she stood up and walked toward the hallway, then stopped. I looked up. "What is it?" She turned back to me. "It feels different." I followed her gaze. The house, the same as it had always been, and not at all the same. I stood up slowly, brushing my hands off. "Yeah," I said. She smiled slightly. "For the first time, it feels like ours." The words settled into me. Not heavy, not overwhelming, just right. I looked around again, taking it in. The quiet, the space, the absence of something that had been there for so long I'd stopped noticing it. Control. Not theirs, not anyone else's. Mine. I thought back to all the moments I doubted myself, all the times I'd been told I was overthinking, overreacting, misunderstanding, all the times I had believed it, and how easily that belief had been used. I used to think I was weak because I questioned myself so much, because I hesitated, because I second-guessed. But standing there, in that house, with Lila beside me, I understood something I hadn't before. They didn't need me to be weak. They just needed me to believe I was. That was enough. I exhaled slowly, letting that settle. Then I looked at her. "Come on," I said. "We still have a lot to go through." She laughed softly and walked back over, picking up another box. We kept going, and for the first time, it didn't feel like we were fixing something that had been broken. It felt like we were building something that had never been ours until now. If you've ever found yourself questioning what you see, what you feel, what you know to be true just because someone else told you that you were wrong, stay with that feeling a little longer. Sometimes that's the part of you that's actually paying attention, and sometimes that's the part that leads you back to yourself.